we will have a quick recap on the Zonal Young Adult Conference that happened recently, about 3 weeks ago. So we invite the Region 5 young adults on stage to give us a recap.
We might ask questions, so listen carefully. Sairam.
Sairam, everyone. As we get settled in, would like to introduce our Region 5 YA crew. Of course, this is not the sum and bonum of all the young adults, but these guys have been kind enough to come up on stage and represent the Region 5 YAs. So what we're going to be doing here is just basically telling a story. And I think it's important for us to highlight what Region 5 young adults have been about. And I think over the years, it's been amazing to see the energy that Swami has brought out in the region. So let's, yeah. So as a storyteller, as a local historian, it seems like that has been here in the region for long enough. I think it's important to highlight how Swami has impacted us since the World Youth Conference. Our region has done some amazing things as a group of young adults inspired by Swami, beginning from the World Youth Conference, where Swami basically gave a clarion call to all the young adults to rise like lions and be the leaders that we can be and use our skill sets to transform youth. And I think that pretty much was what we took away from the World Youth Conference about a decade and a half ago. And this is the specific lines which I think managed to echo through all of our hearts as we worked through our groups in the region. There are about 10 states, so we had different ebbs and flows of youth groups over the years. And this brought us to the question of dare to be divine. Actually, this was a phrase that was coined by Uncle Jagadishan during the World Youth Conference. He had spoken a lot about what the work that Malaysian youth had done. And as youth that had just sat there, listened to a whole bunch of discourses that Swami had given, but this particular term really took us by surprise, and yet at the same time, it created such a drive in us because it's such a nebulous term, dare to be divine. And there's a part of you that thinks that you're not divine, but yet we are divine. And I think the whole process, this journey, has been about how to remember that we are divine and that we continue to manifest that which we really are. And all of these various activities that we take on as young adults is basically a way for us to bring forth that idea. So, dare to be divine is a concept that I think a lot of us deliberated on over the last year. And the reason I bring this up is because this was the theme of the Zonal Youth Conference that just concluded about 3 weeks ago, as our MCs just mentioned. And what these guys are going to do is actually take you through the story of that. And I will just step back and, let these guys talk through that. I think the beauty of Swami is that he manages to transform us in ways that we did not think possible. I'm reminded of a quote that a lady spoke of during Ladies' Day, which was basically that, Swami, I love you not for who you are, but what I have become in your presence. And I think that pretty much summarizes what we are all here, this whole journey is all about. And I think this was pretty much that journey that each one of us has taken in our own right, and each of us has our own story to tell. And I think it is important for us to keep thinking about how we can better ourselves each day. So we'll take you back to how the Zonal Youth Conference even came about. In February of 2018, the Zone approached us for proposals. There were 2 different locations in the US that was being suggested. One was Chicago, Region 5, and the other one was in North Carolina. So we put in our proposal, and at that time, our regional YA team was actually undergoing a lot of transition as our region the region YA reps were transitioning out, and we were about to get in a new set of young adult reps. So at that time, we weren't sure if this was the best of things, but having hosted the National Youth Conference just a decade ago, we were we said we should try, and then we'll see what happens. So we said yes with the blessings of our regional officers, and we went forward with it. So in April of 2018, the national and the zonal leaders visited our region. They took a look at our camp, what we had to offer, and the fact that, you know, Chicago was so midpoint for a lot of the zonal youth, this became a very apt choice. So May 2018, Chicago was chosen as a host. And in November 2018, fast forward, we met as a group of zonal young adults talking about various themes. And the themes came out like, you know, purity. There were various different themes that people wanted to talk about, but we wanted to keep it practical. In one of these deliberations, as they were trying to figure out what would be the best approach to sort of bring together the idea of it being practical, it being very relevant to the young adults, I remember being on the call, and the only thing that kept coming in my head was the word dare to be divine. So when it was proposed, it was accepted. And I felt like it was a full circle from what we had heard back in '97 at the youth conference, and then it actually coming alive with the theme of dare to be divine. And that led to our region, and I would have to say at that point in time, our region was really a bit dormant, partly because of a lot of transitions that had happened. Our young adults were still kind of getting their bearings together, and our own YA reps had just assumed the role. So there was a lot of trepidation of whether we wanted to take on this role, put on a zonal youth conference that they were expecting about 300 to 400 young adults to come. But the only thing that I think we all agreed upon was the word yes. Let's go ahead and say yes and see what happens. And I think that's been the beauty of this whole experience, to experience the aha moments in saying the yes and then seeing what Swami makes us do. So that led to, between January and February of 2019, we began the process of engaging our regional young adults. And mind you, at that time, we had about 5 to 10 young adults that we felt as a regional officer team that we could really count on. That if we called, that they were actually going to respond to our texts or our WhatsApps or our phone calls. And it began this process, and the only thing that we all kept praying was like, Swami, somehow you've got to make this happen. We've got about 4 months, and we're supposedly having to get about 300 young adults. How in the world are we going to happen? And oftentimes we always think back in the day when we had 60 strong young adults and ready to take on the world. Where are these young adults? They've disappeared to like Region 5, Region 7, Region 2, etc. All the other regions are strong, and we're kind of like struggling. And this is where Swami's miracles started happening. So from February onwards, out of the woodworks, all these young adults started to come about. That led to the culmination of a mini retreat that happened in Chicago in May of 2019. We had 51 young adults show up to that mini retreat in Chicago. This was a retreat that was, basically formulated by the young adults for the young adults on the theme of Dare to be Divine. And it was during that 24-hour period, we basically deliberated on the topics of Dare to be Divine. How do we keep ourselves inspired? How do we keep Swami at the forefront? How do we keep doing more service? And this was done through creative ways. We had debates, we had game of pudgeons, we had interactive sessions. It was just amazing to see how all of these things came together and really revel in the aha moments that happen, because everything is so precisely designed by him, and we just have to let it unfold, which led to actually this mini retreat formed the basis of our zonal retreat planning committee. And a lot of these guys are standing behind me, and they're going to now take over and talk about what that process felt like for them. Because you could imagine catering for about 300 young adults meant that we had to think about accommodation, transportation, food, camp setup, AV, medical, childcare, activities and games, exhibition, and devotional. So this is just the logistical aspects of it from our end, but you recognize, and a lot of times these regional retreats happen on an annual basis, and the involvement of young adults may be semi-minimal, as many of the regional officers are smiling as I say it, but to do this on our own, and for these guys to like get up and learn some of the nuances of it, I think that was the most phenomenal part. At the end of the day, you know the product is going to come out just fine because this is how Swami intended it to be. But it's the journey of each one of us as an individual, as a collective entity, that makes this process ever more beautiful and pure as we look back at it. So I will hand this over to Anusha, who's going to talk us through some of the logistical things that she experienced. And Anusha has been a phenomenal person. I think all of us would agree on this team. But Anusha,
thank you, Geeta, for that. Actually, I don't need it. I'm just at that one. So thank you for the introduction, and Sairam, everyone. Logistics, I'm going to talk a little bit about food, accommodation, transport, and in general logistics, but I'm not going to bore you into details. But let me start off by saying that today, right now, I'm not supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be here. I was supposed to be 500 miles away, doing my own thing, my own plans. But hey, who are we to make plans, right? So Swami makes the plan, and that is something that we all, let me speak for the whole team, we all realized through this entire 6 months before the ZYAF that Swami has made this master plan, and all we had to do was simply say, yes, I am there to give myself in whatever way possible, however little it is. Yes, I'm there, Swami. And that is the first takeaway for me and for all of us, that Swami makes all the plans. Now, once you say yes, obviously, when things start pouring in, we have 150, 200 people's transportation requests coming in, 300 people to be accommodated, people coming in early, Thursday, Wednesday, people who are staying back after the retreat. You keep wondering, you keep getting questions. Oh my God, am I really the person to do this? I had no idea what I was doing, honestly. But you keep wondering, you keep doubting yourself, saying, okay, do I have the skill to do this? Do I have the time to do this? Do I have my energy to do this? But none of that really matters. None of that truly didn't matter for every one of us here. We felt as a team that Swami just held out his hand, and all we had to do is take his hand, hold it really, really tightly, and just start walking. And things did fall into place. We did have a lot of loops and, curveballs and everything, but help came through. Help came through from everywhere, from time zones across, from miles across. Local volunteers offering to host, offering to pick people up from the airport, train stations, whatnot. Help came through. And that brings me to my second takeaway. Swami will execute the plan. It's his plan, and Swami will make sure that it happens. We just have to show up and be there. And finally, the third thing, this is probably the most personal thing for me, and I'm sure many of us can relate to it. Of all the hundreds and thousands of people, Swami gave the opportunity to serve him. That is how I looked upon it, that he said, this person has to do this job. And that is why we are all here, standing here, telling our story. And that was kind of the biggest takeaway, that Swami chose all of us. And we just have to believe that and just keep going every day. And that is what motivates every single one of us every single day to do his work. Thank you. Sairam.
Thanks, Anusha. I'd like to now invite Sai Krishna, who's going to talk about the intricate details of putting together a devotional program that's worthy of Swami.
Sairam, Geeta spoke about how she is a person who has been in this region for a long time, and she gave her perspective. My perspective is I'm a person who came into this country 2 years back. And to be a part of something like this was an amazing journey for me. One of the things, so essentially the role that I was playing was I was being the voice for the region and the ears for the zonal team. So I was that intermediate person between them. And I was lucky enough to work with some of amazing people in the region here, all the center presidents, Ganesh, all the center presidents, everybody. And in the zonal team, I was surprised when people there were actually thinking about how many extension cords to be brought, how many cough drops for the singers. So they were thinking of to that level of details. And the number of things that had to be brought into the devotional hall itself was about 30 or 40. All this was just with respect to bhajans. One thing that I really want to highlight here is that something that for our center YA bhajans, I've seen instances where on Friday, probably only half of the sheet will be filled, right? For the zonal team, we had about 350 people coming in, and we had 200 signups for bhajans. So, and every person wanted to sing. They showed amazing enthusiasm. So when these many people show interest, obviously there has to be a system in place to regulate the standard of bhajan so that we offer our best to Swami. So the first thing that we decided was that there is going to be only group bhajans, or at least at any point only 2 people are going to sing together at the minimum, so that as many people as possible, they can get a chance. And second, we formed a zonal committee of 5 people across region, and specific rubrics were formed as to what are the strengths of a singer, which singer will go good with which singer, how the voice we can match. Everything was clearly heard. People submitted the recordings. People were very enthusiastic to submit their recordings. And I would say, being part of the devotional team, it's something that I should not be saying, but Swami made sure that the standard of the bhajans were really high. And this entire hall was jam-packed. Believe me, every single person was clapping till his hands went sore. So I could literally feel that if we have one more bhajan, probably you're going to have the ceiling crack or something. Because that was the amount of clapping and everything. We even had like a separate mic to kind of capture those claps and amplify it. That created more effect. So we had a jam session in the dining hall. There were about 300 people all sitting in a circle, pointed towards that midpoint, and the amount of energy that was coming out, everybody felt that, yes, we were in some place where Swami's presence was felt. And I would say one of it is definitely, the primary thing is Swami's grace itself. The second is the amount of enthusiasm that the YA people came here showed. And finally, the meticulous planning that went behind the devotional team itself. And hats off to the zonal team, and thank you for all the regional presidents and center presidents who supported us with audio equipments and everything. Sairam.
As you could imagine, if he had a choice, he could have spoken an hour about all the intricate details, and that just only goes to show how much level of planning went into it. We'd like to now move on to the day off, which, if it helps me... Oh, right. Okay. We'd like to now ask Sai Bala to come forward, and he's going to give us a synopsis of what Uncle Suresh Govan was all about, because the Dare to be Divine thing started with the Malaysians, and I thought it was just appropriate that Uncle Suresh Govan came and graced us with his presence and inspired a lot of young adults. So, Sai.
Sairam, everyone. Had the pleasure of listening to Dr. Govan during this conference, and it was fantastic. Just on stage and off stage. So actually what happened was the first night I got here, I got here pretty late at night, and so Geeta had asked me to kind of accompany Uncle. At that time, I had no idea that this guy was like the VIP at the retreat. So I was like, oh, Uncle, come, we'll hang out. So I walked with him, and we were just chatting, and he was asking me such detailed questions about like what I would do, and very, very nice, very, very detail-oriented, very amazing. Anyway, I, again, didn't make much of it because there was this uncle that I was supposed to walk to the campfire. Next morning, he gets up on stage, and I'm like, oh my God, I hope I didn't say something crazy to this uncle. But anyway, Uncle's talk was fantastic, had a great message for the youth. He covered about 9 different points. I think the biggest takeaways in terms of what I heard, personally for me and kind of my friends that we took away was, Uncle made the point of destroy your enmity, but not your enemies. And he talked specifically about a story of how when he was in college or when he was training, he had a neighbor that had moved in that was like constantly disturbing him, making a lot of noise. And he just couldn't get away with that, and it was kind of disturbing his studies over time, and he didn't know what to do. But over the course of the months and the years, he realized that it was not that person's fault that they were making noise. Rather, it was Uncle's karma that he had created in the past life that had made that person come to that exact apartment and kind of cause him this trouble. So, Dr. Govan talked a lot about how you have to burn karma in some form, and whatever happens to you is your karmic process. So, kind of have to power through that. And the other big point that I think he kind of surmised with was less luggage, easier travel. I think he kept kind of emphasizing this to me personally and kind of over the course of the conference, where he said, the less you carry with you against people, against anything that bothers you, the easier it is for you to travel through the journey. So take it, leave it, and keep moving on. And I think overall, that message personally has resounded with me a lot in my own work over the last couple of weeks as I've thought about that. But I think it's a lesson for the bigger group as YAs, and I think as in part of the Sai organization, whenever we're tasked for heavy missions, there's a lot that goes on, that we deal with a lot of people, deal with a lot of interesting problems and situations. But as we can see with every successful event, every Sai event ends up becoming successful. It's because we take it, we leave the good, keep moving, or leave the bad, take the good, and keep moving. And I think that was Dr. Govan's message. Sairam.
So no youth festival is going to be complete without an exhibition. I'm going to have Anisha come and talk to us a little bit about the exhibition and this idea of zero waste and going green, which I thought was taken to the nth degree and that we all learned from. So, Anisha?
Sairam, so during the entirety of that weekend, there was a zonal-wide effort for the Go Green initiative, and this was encouraged by the BYOB, bring your own bedding, your own badge, your own bottle, a notebook, and your own beverage mug. It was a purposeful choice of all the YAs and all the attendees to ensure that plastic products, especially single-use plastic products, were minimized, and all trash itself, if it could be reused or recycled, it was done. So everything sent to the landfill was kept to an absolute minimum. And I think it was really great to see everybody striving to create a positive effect on their environment that weekend. You could see it at every meal with a brother or sister by the trash saying, please try and finish your food, just take a couple bites more, saying like, oh, please sort out your paper plates versus the bowls so that we can recycle them properly. And it was really healthy to see that coming from their perspective at home when you're just like, oh, I'll do it when I can. But doing it here was a really purposeful choice, and I think we all really enjoyed that. And now we'll get into a bit of the exhibition team. There were many activities that were part of it, so I'll try and be brief, but fulfill you with the purpose of the activities. One of which was a photo booth without props, because those would be thrown away, but with a green screen that transported the YAs to Prashanthi Nilayam. Additionally, there was a painting activity to promote unity and purpose among all YAs, where each person colored an individual puzzle piece, which came together to make a beautiful mosaic of the Dare to be Divine logo, which was gifted to our guest speaker, Dr. Suresh Govan. To be environmentally friendly, we even found natural beeswax crayons that are now being used in the SSE hall, so even that is being reused. People could earn the puzzle pieces by solving riddles about what Swami has taught them about daring to be divine. And my favorite part of the exhibition hall was the tree. At registration, every YA received a dare, which was on a piece of paper shaped like a leaf. During the conference, they were encouraged to complete this dare, and once they did, they were to write their experience about daring to be divine and their experience in completing the dare on the other side of the piece of paper. After which, they were to come to the exhibition hall and put their leaf on the tree. And when they were there, they could read everybody else's dares and see everybody else's experiences about daring to be divine and experiencing that through the exhibition hall. Sairam.
We're going to quickly talk about workshops. I'm going to invite Karm to come forward.
Sairam, everyone. I was part of the, I did a lot of help with Sai Krishna with a lot of the AV stuff. But one thing that I didn't really see coming were how great the workshops were. When I was thinking about coming here and being on the AV team, I was thinking a lot about the bhajans and getting all the AV stuff for the cabins and everything. But once the workshops really started and we got into the meat of it, I was quite surprised. I personally attended the technology and spirituality and introspection and meditation, and I'll give a brief overview of what we went over. For the tech and spirituality, one thing that we discussed was media and its relationship with their spiritual growth. So we talked a lot about the positives and the negatives. So one example is, TV and like the screen usage that we have on our phones, and how sometimes it's good and sometimes for work we need to be on our devices, but also it can be a distraction. There were a lot of little tidbits of wisdom. It was an open conversation. One thing that I took away, one brother mentioned that social media is making everybody celebrities and everybody journalists. And sometimes these celebrities and journalists are very miserable, It's a very materialistic sort of life. They're showing off a lot, and that kind of, that really hit me. Another thing that was brought up was many points that face young people particularly, and especially as being a young person and having the workshops created by other young people. It was great to see that, connection, something that I don't think I would be able to get at a retreat like this. Having a young person actually get that perspective and that connection is very important. About the introspection and meditation, we discussed meditation from multiple perspectives. So usually in a Sai setting, we talk about it from a spiritual sense, but we also talked about it from a physical sense and from a scientific perspective. So not only the benefits of meditation for spiritual growth, but also for health. We, during the workshop, we practiced different types of meditations and talked about their pros and cons and how for some people, different types of meditation works better for others. And finally, another thing we discussed was deeply attaining a peace of mind and getting that peace of mind once again in a modern sense as a young adult where we're very career focused and we have a lot going on growing up, and establishing those healthy connections and relations with other people spiritually. Sairam.
Thanks, Karm. I know we're standing between you and Sunamda, but give us another 5 minutes and we'll be done. We wanted to next kind of move to the heart-to-heart talks. These were all, I'm going to have Priya actually talk to us a little bit about it. And she was actually one of our heart-to-heart speakers, and she did a fantabulous job of presenting her thought processes.
Sairam, everyone. So we had 5 of our international youth selected to give 5-minute talks. And one of them, was from Canada, and he talked about the amazing seva he organized within the Canadian youth and the impact it had in Canada. Another was a pharmacist, and she talked about how, she saw this woman who she thought was a drug addict, but then she realized, no, this is Swami. So we had these beautiful talks by these incredible young adults. The one I talked about was, I'm an OBGYN resident. And the first time I started residency, man, it sucked. I was always being yelled at. And one day we had a stat C-section. And for the first time I said, Swami, instead of protecting me, please protect the baby and protect the patient. And it was like a thunderbolt. And I think Swami in his beautiful way said, hey, you're here to do my work. Do my work, do it well. and I've given you the opportunity to love and serve my children. And just like that, every single young adult has been given this incredible opportunity to walk forward as his lions and leaders and change the world. And I think the beauty of the Heart to Heart wasn't just that it was individuals talking about their connection to Swami, it was every single person marches forward, living that message, love all, serve all. Expansion is his life, our life is his message. Sairam.
Sairam. Nothing like having a speaker summarize her own speech. So we are going to move forward to media. As you can imagine, it took about 6 months of canvassing for this event. And I'm going to have Soham come forward and share the journey.
Sairam, everyone. Just a little kind of synopsis of the media team. We did some planning beforehand, and we wanted to make sure that we could. A lot of people came here. We had 300 attendees, but we had some young adults who couldn't be here. So we wanted to try and capture everything in photos and videos, and we wanted to share these on our social media platforms. So over there in the bottom left corner, we have at Zone 1 Sai Young Adults. That's our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Do we have time for the video?
We'll do it at the end.
We actually made a video, a recap video at the end, which we will show later.
Yes. So what happens after all this? We come and go. We hear speeches. We deliberate on things. What is the next step forward? I'm going to invite Pranav to kind of give us a glimpse of what we're thinking as a youth group.
So, Sairam, everyone. So, as you heard, the theme of the Zonal Youth Conference was Dare to be Divine. So, personally, that's almost like a challenge for the young adults to step up and roles within the Sai organization. And if you look at the age limits of the young adults, there are people who attended this Zonal Youth Conference ranging from 18 to 40. So, if you're 18, the chances you had seeing Swami physically is very, very small. So, a lot of the people who attended this youth conference haven't seen Swami physically, and all they know about Swami is through experiences through other people or their own parents. So it's very inspiring to see them have that same level of love and same level of devotion towards the Sai mission in order to bring it forward. So what that means is that it means stepping up in roles within the Sai organization, starting young at the both center level and then moving up to the region and eventually the zone. So we have, that weekend itself, we had some of our Sai brothers and sisters start leading initiatives within the local community, as we'll have Brother Biswas talk about.
Thank you. Sairam, everyone, I'll be very brief. So what's next, right? So throughout the talks, Dr. Govind's talks, he really emphasized the importance of community involvement and community service. How are we delivering Swami's message to the community, right? And he also said that there's no value if we do not put into practice whatever we have learned in the retreat. Every year there will be retreats after retreats. In fact, this year I attended 3 retreats, right? So what's the point of attending those retreats if myself I do not put that into practice, the values that I've learned? It will be just merely a socialization and a waste of time, right? So Dr. Govind called the host YAs, the Chicago YAs on stage, right on this very stage, and made us commit. Let's set up an example through Chicago YAs that what are you doing next, right? So he made us took a picture, and our commitment was to start a service project with our partner organization called the Port Ministries. So we already have an existing relationship with the Port Ministries. Let me read the mission. So this is a community-based organization, a nonprofit on the south side of Chicago, inspired by St. Francis of Assisi and the Franciscan community. And the mission is to provide fundamental needs of body, mind, and spirit to the residents of south side of Chicago. They provide free services, completely free of charge, to the children, to the communities, to the moms and families of Chicago. So what we did was we revamped our ideas. In the past, we were celebrating the kids' birthdays every month, but due to the change in the leadership, that project was halted. But now going forward, we started that. Let's start with needs assessment, what exactly the community want. So we had convened 2 times at the physical location of the port, a couple of weeks ago. And Bread Truck is one of the projects that, it's a flagship program that the port has been running. So Brother Anthony, he's also there. He's kind of the community catalyst everyone knows. And we thought that we can leverage his skills and And through him, like we can talk to the community and ask him like what exactly the community needs are. So some of the needs that we found out are one's like ESL classes for the mothers and fathers, for the parents. Most of the community are Latino and they do not speak English. So if we can teach them English, that will be really helpful. Second one, for example, will be the mental health need. There is a huge stigmatization of mental health. So that's also that they have addressed. So we are coming up with also like great ideas. We have all expertise and skills on how we can come up together. And as Dr. Upadhyay said yesterday, it's just a drama, it's just a Leela that Swami is playing. Like he has already done his role, we are just his medium, right? Like we are, as an instrument, how we can deliver his message and our lives to be his message. That's all. And it changed from an individual, from one family, it starts with one community. So,
Thank you. So, as you can see, there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of work to be done ahead. That was just us starting, as Uncle said. Let's not be event planners, but mission drivers. I think that was the refrain that Uncle kept using. And I think it'll be interesting to see in the year to come. And we are standing on the stage in front of you, so you are all our witnesses, that hopefully in a year from now, when we come back to this stage, we'll have more to show, that we would actually walk the talk. And we would actually remember that we are divine, and we will dare each of us ourselves as individuals, as a collective group, to doing the best that we can. I would be amiss if I did not give a shout out to our regional YA officer team. Two of our YA reps, Santosh and Pooja, are not able to be here, but they've been instrumental in putting our group together. I'd like to give a shout out to Bhushan, who's been an advisor, and to Ganesh, who's been an ultra advisor throughout this whole process. Would have to also thank the regional officers who've been supportive. They all showed up yet again, just 3 weeks ago, knowing that they were coming back 3 weeks later, and showed their full support for us. And I think that speaks volumes. If we didn't thank the aunties and uncles who helped us behind the scenes, you know who you are. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we know that we have your support moving forward as well. So we are who we are. It takes a village to make this happen. Would like to leave you with 3 videos, short videos, but it gives you a synopsis of who our reps were, and also a synopsis of the ZYAF. Bhushan.
So, thank you, Geeta. Thank you, Geeta. Talk about the energy, inspiration, and leadership. So these are the true servant leaders of Swami, as you have seen. Let's give them a big hands of applause. Thank you so much. And let's say, Swami, thank you very much for allowing us to host this retreat. It was a magnanimous task, but with the true leadership of the young adults from the region 5, we were able to deliver it. Sairam, thank you very much.
Sairam.
Sairam, how was the trip to ZYF? Louder, please. That's it. We worked for 1 year and that's all we get. Sairam. Say that.